Well, hello and welcome to The Crux. I'm your host, Adrian Hill, and today I'm really excited to chat with our guest who has completed a large body of work and written a dissertation on, I suppose, the best way to manage and run a partnership strategy. And as a partnership geek, I'm extremely excited to chat today about the outcomes of this research. Our guest today is Dorian Kominek, an experienced partnership leader and entrepreneur. It's great to have you on the show, Dorian. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, super excited to be here and appreciate the opportunity to talk about my research.
It's a great piece of work. I obviously will touch on a little bit later on in the podcast about how people can find you, but I've immersed myself in your YouTube channel and some of the podcasts you've been doing of late, and it's definitely a piece of work that resonates or has the potential to resonate with a lot of people. So I'm greatly or very much excited and looking forward to diving in. But I suppose for the viewer, and this story is probably not too dissimilar to a lot of other partnership professionals, I would imagine. But why don't we sort of start with how you found yourself venturing into the channel partnership space?
Yeah, so for the first half of my career, I was an entrepreneur and I kind of did a bunch of things in the creative industries. So totally not, you wouldn't think like tech for sure. It was like a bunch of different things, which I could talk about sometime. But that's a whole different podcast. And then I kind of uh, pivoted out of the world of entrepreneurship, was getting super burned out. Bunch of things happen like in entrepreneurship, like they do,
Yep.
and kind of was like, I started my entrepreneurial journey in university. So I did, straight out of university, I was running a business and then continued to for like 10 years. So it's kind of like, you know what? I better like build a corporate resume.
Yep.
So that's what I did. So I kind of like took on a bunch of roles. It's very hard to convince people of your experience when you start a business out of university. You kind of have to start from ground zero. So I took on a bunch of roles in marketing and sales and just sort of worked my way up on both of those fronts um, until I was a territory sales manager for Miele, which is a German appliance brand.
Yep.
So I was, territory managing for Western Canada for that brand. And then COVID hit. Everybody got laid off on my sales team because we were all, traveling and going out into retail.
Yeah.
So it was like game over. um, and then that's when I was pregnant at the time with my first baby. So I was like, I can't not have a job. Like I need to like
Yep.
have
You
a
got
bit of
mouths to
job
feed
security.
now.
Yes, yes. I Mila was awesome. And I know that like when things sort of quieted down, they offered for me to come back, but I ended up finding a career in the meantime in tech. So I thought, well, this is a really cool opportunity, and I think I could really build my career here. And so when I jumped into tech during the pandemic while I was pregnant, um, that's when I was kind of asked to like help on the partnership side in this startup SaaS company and like, hey, will you help us build this partner program? So that's where I started there. Although I kind of realized later that a lot of my entrepreneurial experience and my experience in both sales and marketing involved partners to a large degree. It just wasn't labeled as
Yep.
such or framed that way. Um, so yeah, so that's how I got into
All
tech,
right.
the world of yeah.
And you,
So
I know, and it's fun. It's funny, isn't it? You touched on, you jumped straight into entrepreneurship straight out of school, and a lot of companies didn't see that as, I suppose, experience, but it's some of the hardest experience and the best real world experience you can get for any corporate or professional person jumping in. The highs and lows and the resilience that you need to display as a business
mhm.
owner. So it's tough. And so I suppose tell us a bit more around this dissertation and the body of work. It's a huge piece of work, and as I said at the top, it resonates a lot with the and it will once more people become aware of the body of work that you've done. But why don't you sort of tell us a bit more about the reasons behind and the catalyst behind why you decided to do this research?
So I think for me, I guess first of all, like I'm a kind of a problem solver kind of a person. I have a really hard time like leaving things alone. If I like, if I see that there's sort of a problem and we can fix it, I that's kind of what I want to do. So, in the partnership world, I had a really cool experience kind of building up this first partner program for this SaaS company. Um, and then as the organization scaled and became less entrepreneurial and a little more uh, got into that scale up phase, things naturally, and this is like normal for every organization, becomes a bit more managerial.
Yeah.
So things started to change a little bit with the just the way the environment was and being able to kind of build things and have this sort of seamless, frictionless situation, right? So and then taking on again like subsequent partner roles, I experienced like a similar situation where it wasn't the same as this first startup environment. There was more, there's red tape and barriers and friction. It was kind of, it could be a little more challenging, to pursue partner program development in an environment like that. And that's not a call out on these organizations at all. I think that's natural. It's normal that a more incumbent organization is going to have a more managerial approach to their leadership style. Um, but nonetheless, I found that it made it difficult to build and scale a brand new partner program. And I kind of thought, well, maybe there's something to this. Like I can't be the only one. So I started looking to my colleagues in the partner space and noticing kind of similar complaints, like just similar friction, similar challenges, trouble getting organizational buy-in or top-down buy-in on partner ideas,
Yeah.
lack of resources, lack of time, kind of expectations that didn't align with like the resources or kind of the reality on the ground in building a partner program. So I was like, well, what is that? Like, how come so many of us are experiencing these same
Yeah.
things? Is this like the partnership, the pandemic of like partnership woes? I don't know. Are we just like all complainers? Like, what's going on?
Yep.
Um, so that's where I kind of got interested in is there a way? So at the time, I was also, when I started my career in partnerships in tech, is also when I started my Master of Science in Entrepreneurship and Innovation.
Right.
So I was kind of like uh, ignited, I guess, and thinking about innovation in sort of a new way and applying these things that I was learning to like everything I was doing. So that gave me this way to kind of frame this problem, this set of problems that we were experiencing as partner professionals. And I kind of had this aha moment and realized like, okay, as partner professionals building channel partner programs or partner programs in general, what we're really doing is we're building a small business within a business. And um, this is a function of innovation,
Yep.
but this process is not being treated like that. We're taking a managerial, these organizations are taking a more rigid managerial approach to something that really deserves an entrepreneurial and an innovation lens. And that managerial approach is stifling our progress and outcomes. That was my hypothesis.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then that's
Absolutely.
what started my research. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So you really touch on the differences between that managerial and entrepreneurial approach to setting up a new program. And so how like what were the major differences that you found in your research? What are the major from a successful partner program to an unsuccessful one, I suppose? What were the major differences that you found?
Well, okay, so I guess I'll start with that managerial versus entrepreneurial
Yeah.
thinking idea. So, um, this is a resource that I used from Neck. Is the original researcher who kind of frames this entrepreneurial thinking versus managerial thinking and the differences between the two. So, and you again like think of like the stages that a company is at. It starts off really entrepreneurial in nature and thinking, and because usually the founders are still involved, and this is
Yep.
kind of how founders are. And then eventually, as things evolve, becomes more managerial. So entrepreneurial thinking is very collaborative. It's like, how do we all collaborate to solve a problem? Managerial thinking becomes more competitive, like we're tightening things up and we're thinking about our external competition and we're being protective. Entrepreneurial thinking is iterative. We're evolving and adapting and pivoting, and it's experimental. Managerial thinking is really linear. It's like we have our goal, we're gonna like hyper focus. It's all about optimizing. Optimize, reduce costs, increase revenue. Whereas entrepreneurial thinking, we're still finding product market fit. It's experimental. We're trying different things. Entrepreneurial thinkers focus on things that are unknowable. Like what do we not know? Managerial thinking is like, we already know these things. Let's focus on what we know. So that's kind of the difference.
Yeah, right.
I think starting with that, I just noticed those types of themes in these organizations. So for instance, when you come into an organization, say, so this was a common story in like a common narrative from partner professionals. They would come into an organization, they would want to be entrepreneurial, like let's experiment, let's figure out fit, let's develop a partner program, like by surveying and testing and working with partners. But the organization would be kind of doctrinarian and like, hey, here's what we want you to do from day one before there's even a partner program. Like, these are your KPIs and here's your timeline, and like just very managerial. So that was a common narrative.
Right. Okay. And it's obviously, the main takeaway is, when you're focused on the managerial side, you stifle innovation and people are less inclined to, I suppose, think outside the box, as everyone wants you to do. As a leader, you want your team to think outside the box and create new ideas, but that managerial way really stifles that growth, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's lots of research on that. So that's not my research. That's research from other people that's kind of showing, okay, like if we're taking on an innovative practice, and I'm not talking even about entrepreneurship, I'm talking about intrapreneurship, doing innovation within an organization. If by taking this managerial approach, we kind of inadvertently stifle kind of innovation before it even takes off.
Yeah,
so there's all of these sort of like scientific kind of management techniques, but this is actually a quote here. These so-called scientific management techniques are directly in conflict with the innovative power within organizations. And that's from research that was done by a person called Buchans, who showed that this managerial approach prevents innovation and growth and development, and actually can cause organizations to stagnate over time. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so, touching on the managerial, entrepreneurial, and sort of piecing this all together, obviously you're super experienced. So what advice would you give, to a partnership professional listening to this today, looking to launch a new strategy within an organization? And then I suppose, how do they manage the expectations of the executive team and try and steer them towards that entrepreneurial thinking?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. I guess there's a few things I can say. First, I'll just say that my research kind of focused on this top-down approach, like what are organizations doing that's kind of hindering them to succeed, and then what can the organization do differently, or how do they need to reorient themselves in order to have success in their partner program. And so one of those things that I would say that they should do is consider hiring a really entrepreneurial person when building a partner program. But let's say you're not we're talking bottom up, you're the partner professional and you're kind of working within a framework, an organization that's not super entrepreneurial. So I guess there's a few things you can do. I would say, if assuming you're entrepreneurial already, because I think partner professionals who take on the task of building partner programs tend to be. Seems to like draw us out of the woodwork. If you are that way, then then reframing building what you're building like a business. So what if you were building a business, what would you do? So this isn't necessarily something I researched, but I'm just extrapolating here. What would I do? I would treat my partner program as though I was building a business in, and I would think of my executive leadership team as kind of like a panel of VCs, like venture capitalists or investors or something. And I am kind of pitching them on the idea. So I'm going to present to them, here's how my partner program is going to work. And here's sort of my financials. Here are my expectations. These are the resources I need. Like, you need to build a really strong business case, almost like you're looking for investment from your venture capitalists, and gain buy-in that way. And then as a follow-up to that, you're going to need to show how you track to your business plan over time. Like, so I put out this financial sort of plan, and here's how I'm going to use my resources, and here's my targets I aim to hit. Here's how I'm tracking to it, right? And if I'm not, how do I justify that and explain it? So and just being really good at tracking that and documenting. So it's kind of you got a little extra work to do if you're up against not necessarily a supportive organization.
Yeah.
The other thing I would do is find people within the organization, hopefully in the leadership team, who do have kind of an entrepreneurial bent or kind of like bone in their body, and try to have them help you evangelize the program from this framing. So, collecting all of the symptoms together and challenges you're dealing with, and presenting it like, hey, I think this is challenging because we need to be more innovative in our approach. And here's how we should be. Like, so that's what I would do. I didn't research that. If that would work, my prescription here, if that's going to work, I don't know, but that's what I would try.
I suppose it's when launching a new program, it's probably much like launching a new business. It's better to over communicate than under communicate. Be extremely transparent, put forward numbers, but I suppose you've really got to manage expectations early and let them know that partnership programs are an extremely successful source of revenue for a lot of SaaS companies, but it can take time. It can take a little bit of time to implement the program, bring on board the partners, sort through a couple of challenges early and get through that that challenging part. But it can be a little bit of a longer term strategy than your traditional outbound SDR approach. And so flipping the script then and coming at it from an entrepreneurial lens, or an entrepreneur's lens, or a business owner's lens, you touched on it briefly, but what are some of the characteristics of a good partner manager that that you've found along the way and that business owners should be looking out for?
So I didn't research this so much, but it kind of came through a little bit in the answers to survey questions. So I guess I can say that partner professionals, partner managers, partnership leaders who succeed in their partner programs find that there's 5 factors of innovation that help to make innovation successful. So these partnership leaders really resonated with those 5 factors, and they found that when these 5 factors are present, they're more successful in their work. And when those factors are not present, they're not successful.
Right.
And then I would say, like, also in the narrative from these partner professionals, a lot of the commentary, because I looked at the actual, the comments that people sent through in their surveys, did kind of read as very entrepreneurial, very resourceful. So being resourceful is kind of a big hallmark of being entrepreneurial. So that's kind of one feature of, and it's hard to, there's a lot of research on this that, I didn't get into this so much, is like whether entrepreneurs are kind of born or made or somewhere in between. But, it seems to be that this world of partnership program development attracts entrepreneurial people. You could probably make a whole hypothesis on that and do another set of research.
You're right, because it's still SaaS-based partnerships. Whilst partnerships have been around for a long time, and I've heard you touch on this in some of your previous podcasts and your own channel. This is setting up a partnership is not a new, it's not a new thing. It's been around for hundreds of years. But
Mm-hmm.
setting it up in a SaaS based business is somewhat still new, and people are still getting their head around it. And it's great to see people like yourself, really breaking the mold. And then, so I suppose on that, based on your research, and it probably ties into an earlier question I had, but was there anything that surprised you as within this research?
Mm-hmm. Um, so I guess I'd say the level of yeah, the degree to which this is sort of like these similar complaints, these similar threads of complaints are happening from,
Yep.
and I say complaints like not in a negative way. I just mean sort of the calling out of these issues, um, the frequency
Right.
of this being a challenge is surprising. Like, not only was it not just me, it's almost everyone like that's having these challenges. Like, so these are common topics among partner professionals. How do we get more resources? How do we get more buy-in? How do we, like, why don't we have enough time? How come we're being given KPIs before we've even built the program? Like, just common, very common.
Yeah.
So I think, and I've said this, so sorry if people have heard this on other podcasts if I've been on before, but this statistic that so 2 out of every 3 partner professionals say the biggest challenges across their career, like not just in their one role right now, but across their entire career, has been internal challenges. So in the organization they're working in trying to build the partner program versus external challenges, working with partners, trying to attract the right types of partners, business development, externally facing things. The bigger challenge was internal facing, friction, buy-in, resources. So I think, at first glance, that sounds like a lot, 2 out of 3 partner professionals,
Yeah, that is.
internal challenge, right? But I think it's like, when you really think about it, that's like a huge problem. If you were to ask somebody in any other profession, like, what's the biggest challenge in your job, if they said my own workplace,
I know. Red
like
flags. Red
right,
flags.
so to me that was like kind of staggering. I actually didn't expect the number to be that high. Like, to me, that number should be 0. Like,
Mm.
your biggest challenges should be, maybe you have some issues sometimes, like people or interpersonal or something, but not the organization itself just not even sort of believing in you and supporting you in your job, in your work, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And or like feeling like, this was common too, like feeling like, I'm an experiment. Like, my job is sort of teetering on the edge because I'm an experimental arm of this organization. Like,
Yep.
that was common too. So that's very uncomfortable, right? To be in a role where you feel like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Looking over your shoulder every single day, not knowing if, today is going to be your last day within an organization. And you're so right. Like, everything you just said resonated with me as well. I've been a part of a few different partner programs where it has been a bit of a test, a bit of a dummy situation. Let's test the waters and see what this is like. And some organizations give you an adequate amount of time. Most don't. They just like, well, we haven't seen any kind of revenue come through. There was a bit of a disconnect between what the KPIs should be from the top down versus the bottom up, as you said. And it's a really tough shift. And I suppose this is why I'm really excited to talk to you and people in the industry that are, I suppose, creating more awareness, around it. And that, this is a very fruitful exercise if done right, and if the organization gives you enough time to really, get your hands dirty, get some of those partners on board, and get some of that, what was once called predictable revenue through outbound models, but starting to create predictable revenue through a different medium is so that's it's staggering that 2 out of 3, that's a huge number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And also, I think it was like 12%. Like, so there's the 67% with 2 out of 3. An additional 12% said that it was kind of a split between both internal and external. So even the people who said there's a small margin relatively that said external, most people had an issue internally. So
Yeah, like and you like
Yeah.
obviously these businesses have, they've put together a business case and they've invested time and energy and resources, and then yeah, that's well, hopefully we can all set about creating change and getting everyone singing from the same hymn sheet, I suppose. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um so and then where can listeners find you? You've obviously done a heap of work, and as I said at the top, you have a YouTube channel up now where you're creating little pieces of video and sort of pulling that out of your dissertation. But where can listeners find you?
Yeah, so so pardon the name. Yeah, my YouTube channel is called Innovation Sensation. I think I came up with it super late at night and it rhymed. So I was like, all right.
Perfect.
Um so yeah, I started a little series of like partnership 101 where I just talked about a couple like basic partner concepts and ideas, and then I'm starting to break down my dissertation and a bunch of other videos, and hopefully that's useful. So that's on, yeah, just on YouTube. If you search Innovation Sensation, you can find that. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Dorian R Kominek. There's one other Dorian Kominek, but he's a Polish man.
Okay.
So
So
you'll
you can't
know if you,
can't get confused.
yeah. And then I also have a website set up, partnershiphero.ca, and there's like a contact form and stuff and a Calendly link. You can feel free to reach out. So I'm happy to talk about this research and my paper. And if you find my YouTube channel, helpful, you can share it,
Yep.
whatever. But yeah, so that's where to
No.
find me.
Well, I can vouch. I can vouch for the YouTube channel. There's a lot of great stuff in there, and I think I've mentioned it a little bit throughout this, but the resonation of this body of work that you have put in, and I suppose highlighting areas like the stats of 2 out of 3 partner professionals now are fighting the challenges internal, and we really are at the precipice of change, with a
Mhm.
lot of these companies, and we're fighting a noble battle early on, trying to get these organizations to adapt and overcome. And I love what you're doing. I love the piece of work that you've written and the dissertation. And I look forward to following along and seeing what happens next.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely, it was an absolute pleasure, and yeah, I really appreciate your time. And yeah, I hope the audience, and I know the audience, will get a lot of value out of this, as did I. And I look forward to chatting again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dorian.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks.
Don't forget to follow Crux PRM on LinkedIn or cruxhq.com to register as a guest.